Hey guys, it's Jack here, and today we're going to be talking about the man who deceived himself with his own lies. The man that is going to get a major power up in the next arc, and a man whose character journey from coward to brave warrior of the sea to God is about to be met. That's right, we're talking about, you guessed it, God Usopp. Now, I should preference really quickly the spoilers for this video. It's a little bit shaky. We're not going to be talking about anything of the prior arc that's just happened. We are going to speculate and theorize though on what could be happening in the next arc. I won't name that arc here, but if you guys are circling around One Piece YouTube, I find it impossible to believe that you wouldn't have already been spoiled by it. But like I said, last chance if you want to avoid spoilers to click off the video now. I'm assuming you're all still here. That's right. Next arc, we're going to Elbaf. And that's going to be happening. If it's not happening in the next chapter, it's definitely going to be happening in the next 3 chapters. We're finally going to be going to the long-awaited island, the land of the giants, Elbaf. Now, what does this mean on Usopp's character? It means a whole freaking lot. That's what it means. But we can't just jump into it and be like, yeah, this is why Usopp's going to get a power-up in Elbaf. It's because of X, Y, and Z. It's not as simple as that. First, we need to go over a few different things, namely, what makes Usopp Usopp? Because we need to know that to understand why he is going to be receiving such a massive power boost in Elbaf. And I know a lot of you guys are thinking, Jack, we get that. He has a fascination with the giants. Of course it's going to be Elbaf where Usopp shines. But I reckon it's more important than that. I reckon that we need to go in a little bit deeper. Yes, that we know in Little Garden, Usopp met Dory and Broggy. And it was through meeting them and seeing them having this epic duel for 100 years straight that Usopp gets inspired by them. He sees them and he's like, this is the embodiment of what it means to be a true warrior. Mainly just because of their fighting spirit, their willpower, their tenacity, their ability to never give up, never stop believing in what is right. These two men, these two giants, have been fighting for over 100 years and never wavered in their beliefs. And that's what Usopp sees, and that's what he's inspired by. Because he's already wanted to be a brave warrior, which we're going to get into, but that was just a thought that he had in his head. He didn't know what being a brave warrior really meant until he saw Dory and Broggy and realized then and there immediately, that is what I want to be, a giant. Now, it's played up for comic effects, and I don't necessarily think Usopp will become a giant in Elbaf. I do know some people do theorize that might happen, maybe with some shenanigans with Luffy's power. I'm not going to speculate on that itself, but I am going to get into some speculation on a few little Easter eggs in Usopp's character on why I think, not the whole reason, but extra reasons why I think Usopp will reach his peak in Elbaf. But we mentioned a brave warrior of the sea. That's what Usopp wants to be. But why does he want to be a brave warrior of the sea? That's not something you just wake up and be like, you know what, I'm going to be a brave warrior of the sea. It's much more complicated than that, and quite sad when you think about it. Because we know Usopp has wanted to be a brave warrior of the sea since he was a kid, most likely from seeing his father leave to go pursue piracy, essentially. Now, Usopp doesn't resent his father for that, and we're going to get into that in a second. But he sees his father going out to make his dreams come true, and I think that's inspired Usopp, not just through hereditary beliefs, the sharing his father's beliefs, but through the fact that he's seen his father leave their family. So Usopp, in his little mind, must be thinking that if my dad has left me for that, then that must be something truly, truly amazing. I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to be a great warrior of the sea, but my dad's going off to live that. That is something that must be worth more than staying at home with his family. So I think that's kind of how Usopp's rationalizing those thoughts there. Because his father Usopp leaves and he's left with his mum. And his mum ends up getting sick and she ends up dying from this sickness. But we see how Usopp handles this situation. And it's the most it's the most important part of Usopp's character that doesn't get talked about enough. Because from when we first see Usopp in the beginning of the series, he's always lying, he's a coward, he doesn't have much of a backbone, he seems quite weak. But is he? And I ask you this because from what we see of his past, we don't see much of it, mind you, but from what we see in his past and what we know about him from when he first joined the crew, while his mother was sick, how did he try and cheer her up? He would tell her stories. He would lie to her. To try, like, those lies sometimes meant, saying that, dad was coming back. Other times it would be funny, comforting stories that he would tell his mum to try make her feel better because of her being sick. She was never in a good place. And Usopp is seeing that as a child, and he's going out of his way to be strong for his mother to comfort her with these stories. Not just for her sake, but probably her seeing Usopp trying so hard and telling her all these stories and keeping his spirit up is the true aspect of probably what was helping Usopp's mother have, die with a smile on her face, essentially. Not a member of the clan of D, but to see her son be so strong for her sake would have filled her heart with joy, I imagine. But we see it with more than just his mother. The most impactful person we see it with is, of course, Kaya. Because once again, Kaya mirrors his mother. She's a girl that gets sick, and that sickness causes her to be bedridden and miserable. Usopp sees this, and what does he do? He lies to her. Not to manipulate her, or to deceive her, or to get her fortune, which, once again, great parallel to Kuro there, great writing by Oda. But he does it because he sees someone in need, and he wants to help them. And he does that in the only way he knows how, and it's to make up stories to comfort people, because it works so well with his mother. So he tells Kaya all these stories of, great warriors, of, fish that shit out islands worth of crap, to him ruling over 1,000 other men. All these outlandish stories for the sole principle of making Kaya smile. He wasn't afraid to make a fool of himself or embarrass himself, because the only main objective there was making someone feel better. He does a similar thing with the veggie pirates, the 3 children that follow him around. Usopp, he does, because we don't know what their lives are like, so we don't know how much of an impact this is having. But he humors them. He entertains these children. He doesn't have to do that. He does it because they see in Usopp what they want to be as children. He's carefree. He's not afraid to be silly. He's telling all these amazing stories. So of course they would look up and be inspired by Usopp. And Usopp he doesn't keep them around for the sole purpose of of what's the right word here? Inflating his ego. It's because he can do something to make these children happy. To maybe entertain them because they're having a boring time at life because they're children. Maybe they're different and the other children don't like to play with them. Maybe they have crappy family lives and he's just trying to cheer them up. We don't know specifically, so, I've put that one further down on the list compared to Kaya and his mother, which is more... Well, it's not more. It is foolproof, the reason why he does that. While with the Veggie Pirates, it's just a nice little thing that Usopp does. And if you read more into it, it could be even more impactful than what we know. But we just don't have enough knowledge on them. But we see him cheering up everyone around him. He's essentially the sun in a lot of these people's lives. He is what makes them want to wake up in the morning, which is an incredibly powerful aspect of a person's character to have. Like, you guys watching right now, people in the real world, you don't have that many people in your life where they can just brighten your day up. It is very, very rare, and Usopp's showing this for 3 different people. Of course, I'm counting the kids as one there, but essentially 5 different people. But it's not just these specific name characters, it's the whole village. Because what does he do by telling all these lies? He keeps everyone energized, he keeps everyone on their toes, and we see that they feel sad when Usopp doesn't come and lie to them all. Now you can be like, oh, Jack, you're an idiot, you're reading too much into it. I'll accept that, but I do think part of Usopp subconsciously knew that the village needed his lies to keep them up, to make them feel good, and that is what Usopp does. He also, with his dad going back to Usopp, I speculated that it was his dad leaving that made Usopp want to be a great warrior of the sea, because, my dad left me, so that must be something that's worthwhile. But another thing that you can say of it is that he was more than willing to accept his dad leaving. He wasn't bitter or resentful over it. He wasn't some edgy character where it's like, oh, I'm going to get you, Dad. I swear revenge on you. Because of you, Mum died, and I'm going to hunt you down and end you. It's nothing like that. He looks at it in an incredibly mature way, to be honest. And he's doing all of this as a child. He's honestly, and this is the whole reason why I'm continuously talking about this. I haven't just mentioned it and then swept it to the side. Because what he's doing here is showing a lot of bravery, a lot of courage, a lot of admirable qualities to make a good person. He doesn't see what he's doing here. He doesn't see the effects that he's having on everyone's lives. But that is what he's doing. He considers himself a coward. But just the mere fact that he's not afraid to be silly and not afraid to be hurt or make an ass out of himself to make others feel better, more specifically Kaya, is just a level of bravery that people probably wouldn't consider it brave, because we're watching a shonen anime. What we're seeing as brave is, standing up to powerful enemies without any hesitation, doing all this like badass stuff. But the more subtle aspects of it can be considered very courageous. And we do see Usopp show that bravery by standing up to Kuro, even when the whole village didn't believe him because of his prior lies, the boy that cries wolf. He doesn't let that stop him. He would have been well within his right. Well, screw you guys. I'll let you guys suffer the fate of it all. But he doesn't. He stands up not just for Kaya, but for the whole village. Because they're, in Usopp's mind, they're just peaceful, innocent villagers that know nothing of this and don't deserve to be massacred by these pirates. So he's going to stand up and he's going to risk his life to defend them. I hate to break it to you, Usopp, but, well, I don't hate to, I love to break it to you, but right in this scene, in the very first arc you show up in Syrup Village, you are already a brave warrior of the sea. In my mind, at least. You guys watching might be like, nah, Jack, he hasn't reached that yet. I reckon that he already reaches it by the time he leaves Luffy, by the time he meets Luffy. Even more so when he just joins the crew for the first time. That's why I started this video off. He deceives himself with his own lies. Because he believes the self-image of himself that he's created. That he's weak, that he's pitiful, that he's nothing but a coward. All without realizing that he's one of the bravest men in the series. And I'm going to show you a few examples of why he was that brave. And that first way is in Arlong Park when he's fighting the fishman Chu. Now, you could even, it's too small of a scene to really, spend a few minutes talking about. But back in this arc where Arlong's invaded the town and he's about to kill someone, Usopp stands up from the roof and shoots him with a slingshot. And then he runs away after that, showing a cowardly nature after doing something so brave. I believe it is the doctor, actually, in Arlong Park, now that I'm thinking of it, that mentions in the final fight there that I don't know what to make of this guy. One minute he's cowardly and the next minute he's brave. And that's Usopp's character, and it's because of all his self-doubt and self-worth. But that scene of Usopp stopping Arlong there, taking all the heat onto himself, is another moment. But the main reason I wanted to bring this up was, once again, his fight with Chu. So, he fights with Chu. He immediately recognizes that Chu's much stronger than him. And what does he do? In typical Usopp fashion, he legs it. He's out of dodge real quick. And Chu chases him down. Now, Usopp shows that he's able to outpace Chu here and probably be able to escape. In fact, we definitely know he's able to escape because Chu uses his water bullet techniques, fires them at Usopp. Usopp goes down, but it's all just a disguise. Usopp's poured ketchup on him, he's pretending to be killed, and he's hoping for Chu to see his dead body and to leave. And, you know, you look at that, and that's a cowardly action. I mean, most people watching probably would do it, but at the end of the day, it's a cowardly thing to do. But Usopp, you know, does the reverse of it. He surprises the audience, because what he does, he realizes that, yeah, you know what, I could get away here, and I could make up all these stories about how, you know, the fishman barely got away from me. I had him beat, but he used this underhanded tactic to leave. But all of these lies in his own head, they turn to ash in his mouth, because he knows that lies to help people feel better are one thing, but lies to mask your own inner cowardice, your own inner self-loathing, isn't worth anything. He's not going to just lie here and tell his friends this lie and let Chu potentially injure his friends, the friends that accept him for who he is. So that's what Usopp decides to do. He's like, nah, enough's enough. He gets up and he attacks Chu. And Chu even comments like, you should have stayed dead. I was about to leave. You were going to survive, but now I'm going to bloody kill you. But Usopp shocks him and he fights back and he's able to defeat him. And Usopp always had that strength within him. He just needed to realize when his friends were going to be in danger, he needed that to be able to get out of all that self-loathing and build up that confidence that's always been inside of him to accomplish what needed to be done. And that was defeating Chu, and he succeeded in it. Because another really, and this, I'm not going to bring this up for each scene, but you could bring it up for each one. Something that doesn't get brought up enough. Usopp, I reckon, is the bravest character in One Piece, specifically because he is so scared. Because what is being brave? It is doing something that you're afraid of. That's essentially the definition of what that word means. If you're not afraid of something, but you do something that outwardly looks courageous, is it really courageous when you weren't worried about that to begin with? In my opinion, not really. It doesn't take away from potentially doing a good deed, but it's not something that I would call brave. Brave is overcoming your fears. Who's the man that holds the most fears in this series? It's Usopp. And despite all that fear, each time he overcomes it. And that's why I think that he is the bravest character in the series. Why I think he's already a brave warrior of the sea. But let me know about that down in the comments, that philosophical argument of what is bravery. But in my mind, scenes like this, stepping up to Chu, are the main reasons why I consider Usopp brave, and why he is a brave warrior of the sea. Another scene that I want to talk about isn't an action scene. It is just not spoiler alert, Jack Jesus. Just FYI, everything with, you know what, I'm just going to mention it. I'm not going to do any analysis on it. But on Little Garden, we already went over what his relationship with Dorian Broggy. Him standing up and fighting and defeating Mr. Five. That, once again, Usopp showing just how brave he actually is by stepping up where it counts and defeating him. But that's just a very, very similar situation to Chu, so I'm not going to touch on it more than that. The scene that I really wanted to talk about, though, was in Alabasta, when he's fighting with Chopper, Mr. Four and Miss Merry Christmas. And it's not the fight itself, which I actually reckon is one of the most underrated fights in pre-time skip. It's a very, very good battle. But it is the fact that Miss Merry Christmas, I believe it is, of course it's Miss Merry Christmas, Mr. Four freaking doesn't talk at all. Miss Merry Christmas mentions that their boss, Crocodile, has killed Straw Hat Luffy. That fool that thought he was going to be king of the pirates, yeah, our boss killed him. And Usopp shows another level of what I call bravery here as well. Potentially even more impactful, because it's not just standing up and fighting someone. It's knowing without a shadow of a doubt that no, I don't care what you say, Luffy isn't dead. He's the man that's going to be king of the pirates. And that's what Usopp does. He stands up and he shouts at them and he declares that that is what is real. That's the truth of the matter. I don't care what you say. You could have seen Luffy get impaled. He's not dead. He's going to become the Pirate King. That level of faith there, because that's what it is. It's faith in Luffy. The bravery to be able to stand up and say that with absolute supreme confidence, I reckon, is worthy of note. And the fact that it is Luffy being besmirched is the reason why Usopp stands up and stops running away in that fight. That's what fills him with courage there to beat Miss Merry Christmas and Mr. Four. It wasn't out of fear of his own life. It wasn't even out of desire to, save one of his comrades' lives. It was to protect the dream of his captain, of his best friend. That alone is enough to give Usopp the necessary strength to beat opponents that are admittedly stronger than he is at that time. And it's a great parallel to Wano, where he sees Nami do essentially the same thing. And he says to her, like, you don't need to do this, Nami. But we know it's the very same thing Usopp's already done. He just doesn't want Nami to do it because he doesn't want her to get hurt. But in terms of himself, he'll easily sacrifice himself 100 times over if it means defending Luffy's dream, because he knows how important that dream is to his friend. But Usopp's biggest moment probably in the entire series, like if you guys were ranking Usopp's 10 greatest moments, I reckon unanimously it would be number 1, and that is when he fights Luffy at Water 7. Now, this was a very, very emotional scene. So basically, due to philosophical differences, Luffy has chosen to part way with the Going Merry. But Usopp can't accept that. The Going Merry in his mind is a ship that's carried them all. It's a ship that he loves. It was a ship that was given to him by a woman that he cares for deeply, and he doesn't want to see that ship be destroyed. So, he challenges Luffy for it. Now, Usopp doing this, I don't, like, it's a philosophical question for all you guys watching. Everyone's going to have a different opinion on it. I would probably lean more in the Luffy camp that, the Going Merry carried us so far. We love this ship, but it's time to part ways. The reason why I'm in his camp as well is because that's the camp that Usopp ends up coming to accept. He doesn't just, change his mind because he wants to be with his friends. He changes his mind because he realizes at the end of the day Luffy was right, that it was something that he needed to do. But at that time of grief and anger over the ship, Usopp can't see that. He needs to go through all the scenes of his fight with Luffy, everything that happens with Robin, becoming Soga King, to realize, to understand the position that Luffy was in, and that's what he comes to accept. The fight, though, with Luffy, I'm not going to analyze the whole fight itself. It's one of the best fights in the series. Go and watch it. And if you want a whole analysis just on that fight, then let me know, and I'll put that in the pipeworks of future content. The main thing I want to talk about this, though, is Usopp's theme. The reason why we're going all through all this. What it means to be a brave warrior. And that is Usopp here. He confronting Luffy. There is a great saying, and I believe it is actually spoken by Dumbledore in Harry Potter. I imagine you didn't think he was going to be getting a mention in this video. He actually shows up in more of my anime videos than I care to admit. But I believe it's Dumbledore that says it's one thing, it's one level of bravery to, he's not saying it in these words, but the general gist of it, it's one level of bravery to stand up to your enemies, but an even greater bravery to stand up to your friends. And I reckon that's a beautiful line JK's given Dumbledore there. Because I reckon it's really, really true, and something that all of us, real life people watching, can understand. Because think about how much easier it is to call someone out on their BS that you don't like. Someone that's, I can't stand John, he's a fuckwit. You know what, you're an idiot, that's a stupid take. compared to your best friend and them saying something stupid, and in your mind being like, I don't really agree with that. I wish you like wouldn't say something like that. It's much harder to confront them on it because you're running the risk of ruining a friendship that you would think would hold very dear. And Usopp has the exact same thing here with Luffy. Now, like we were saying, do I think it was right that Usopp challenged Luffy like this? Probably not in a philosophical debate of it, but it's what Usopp needed to do. And he had the strength not to just go with his captain's orders when he, Usopp, believed at the time that it was wrong. He very easily could have been a good soldier and just, you know, stood in line and accepted what Luffy decided to do. But it's not. He confronted Luffy. And I think, regardless of any opinions that you have on Usopp, of how you feel about Usopp's character, that Usopp doing that is something that anyone should be able to respect. But in that same line of thinking, he does through Water 7 and Annie's Lobby, he has another interesting development here, and I briefly brought it up just before, but he develops a persona of Soga King. And he uses his Soga King persona to build up his courage to be brave enough to risk going back to the very people that he just denounced. So that's one side of it. Brave enough to, though, like the Soga King persona giving him enough strength to help him fulfill the power that he needs to rescue Robin, a friend that he cares about. But he knows he's going up against really powerful enemies, and he doesn't think that he has what it takes to be able to stop them. So he forms this persona of Soga King to give him the necessary confidence to be able to better handle the opponents that they're coming up against. And the greatest thing about not Kubo, Jesus Christ, Jack, wrong anime. Oda to do here with Soga King is that he makes Usopp have this fake persona, which, like this fake confidence, this fake willpower, this fake being, when Soga King is actually who Usopp truly is. It's more Usopp himself that is the lie here. Because from all these examples I've given you, from the 20 minutes I've been gushing about this, we know that Usopp has already become a brave warrior of the sea. We know the true depth of his courage and what he would do for his friends. That everything he had there, he already possessed. The cowardice and the lying, at least the negative form of his lying, and the running away, all that stuff, that is just a product of his own insecurities. Now, yes, like his insecurities are him as well. I'm not dismissing that. But it's an offshot of his true character. His true character is to stand up and fight for his friends. And we know this for a fact, because if that wasn't his true character, if it was more the cowardly aspect of him that was more real, then we would see him not get back up to fight Chu. We would see him hide in the forest instead of confronting Mr. Five. We would see him not having the balls to go up against his best friend. And that's how we know that Soga King is actually the truest form of Usopp's beliefs. That is why when he has the Soga King mask, why he becomes so much more powerful. Because that's who he is as a person. Just one thing else that I want to quickly touch on, because I just loved the scene. It's very similar to him having faith in Luffy and Alabasta. When Luffy's fighting Rob Lucci, it is Usopp that gives him the courage to get up and beat Lucci. Because Luffy sees that his best friend is there with them. Because turning away Usopp broke Luffy's heart. And to see Usopp there, giving him support and cheering him on, telling him that he knows that he can do it, that is what Luffy needed to reignite that spark, to get back up and to punch out Lucci. So that was just another scene that isn't totally necessary, because I've already gone over similar things, but just something that I couldn't help gushing about, and I wanted to include it in this video. But From there onwards, he has a scene with Perona. Once again, not going to touch on too much because it's him forming the Sogeking mask, putting the Sogeking mask on to overpower an enemy that was stronger than him. Once again, a really, really great fight. Lots of different strategies involved in it. But it's just more of the same of the how it's ironic, the irony that Usopp needs to fake a persona that's actually his real persona to help strengthen his then fake persona to beat Perona. Do you get where I'm going with that? It's just another example of it. Will Sogeking's mask be brought back in Elbaf? I definitely reckon it will be. But we'll get on to that more a little bit at the end, where I go over a few of the little Easter eggs. But other than that, we had post-time skip, his training arc, where he gets stronger, he gets buffer, he gets more equipment, he gets more skill sets. He also gets a little bit more of a confidence boost, I reckon. It's never outwardly said, it was never outwardly told to us as the audience, but just the way he carries himself. He stands up a little bit straighter, something I need to work on. But he has a swagger to his step a little bit more. So it's Usopp's real character, shining through a little bit. The baby steps of it all. The only other scene I really want to talk about post-time skip is the scene in Dressrosa, because post-time skip Usopp unfortunately doesn't get many highlights, many great moments. I don't know if Oda's done this deliberately, because Elbaf is just going to be freaking gargantuan moments for Usopp. I like to think that it will be. But he's kept him pretty much in the shadows through the whole post-time skip, other than what happens with Dressrosa. So, there's a character named Sugar, as I'm sure you all know, that can turn people into toys. I don't want to spend minutes talking about what her power is, but it doesn't just turn people into toys, it erases memories of people that knew the person before they turned into a toy. It's basically a power to enslave everyone of Dressrosa. Now, Usopp is able to, in extreme pressure, awaken a very strong level of observation haki, and he's able to take Sugar out. It's a little bit anticlimactic me saying it like that. He gets that observation haki because he sees that Luffy's about to be turned into a toy by her, and he can't allow his best friend to fall like that. So once again, it's his friendship with Luffy, it's his love that he has for Luffy that gives him the power boost here to then defend said captain. It's in doing so he frees all of Dressrosa, and everyone that was turned into a toy by Sugar, declares him their god, which is very, very, very funny. And Doflamingo puts like a 500 million berry bounty on his head, and Usopp can't believe it. He's being held up by Haridine. Once again, the giant holding the god up. We'll get into that. And Usopp just can't believe what's happening. It's also another great scene, because we know Usopp's lies often come true. He does eventually see the goldfish whose turds are as big as islands. We see him see that. We also see that here is where he gets thousands of men under his command. So it's a nice little detail of Oda to include that type of stuff. It's not totally unique to Usopp. We have things like, in Greek mythology, there's an example, one of Apollo's priestess and stuff like that, that every prophecy that she says, no one will believe. And most recently, House of the Dragon, Helena, speaking in prophecies that no one is believing, but by listening to the words that she is saying, we know that those things are going to come to pass. And Usopp is kind of a medium like that as well, that Oda has conveying future details of the story through Usopp. But he gets referred to as God, he gets all these subordinates, and that pretty much leads us up to the end of Egghead, where he's going to Elbaf. Now, let's just conclude everything that we've just spent 25 minutes talking about. So we already knew we already knew that Usopp wanted to go to Elbaf because he wanted to be a brave warrior of the sea, and he saw the perfect definition of that through Dory and Broggy. They're giants, their homeland is Elbaf. They tell him to go there and you'll see great warriors. So that's why he wants to go there. We've discussed why he has, like, where the desire to become a great warrior of the sea came from. A mixture of wanting to help his mum and Kaya, seeing how his dad left. We also see that this dream that he always wanted to accomplish is something that he's already done. And he did the moment that he showed up, before he even showed up, his deeds before that. He had already accomplished everything that he wanted. So we understand his dream of becoming a great warrior of the sea. But now we need a question. Why is it Elbaf where that is going to come to the surface, where the climax of that is all going to be? Now, once again, the easy answer is, Jack, you just said it before. Dory and Broggy told him to go to Elbaf. We've been waiting for this for ages. Of course it's going to be Usopp's arc. And you're right, that is true. But a few other little details of it that I thought was very interesting. What is Elbaf? Elbaf, we know, is going to have a lot of Norse mythology incorporated into it. Now, we know that one of the giants' names is, the king of them is Odin, and that there's a giant called Loki. And Loki's an interesting one, because Usopp has a lot of parallels. That's a bit hyperbole. Not a lot of parallels. He has some parallels with the true god of mischief from Norse mythology, Loki. What are those parallels? One, he's a god. He has the epithet God Usopp, God, Loki a god, makes sense. He also, Usopp, is a liar. That's his biggest characteristic. And we know he does it negatively and positively. What was Loki the god of? The god of mischief, the god of tricks. How did he accomplish these deeds? He tended to do it by lying to people. He would lie them to trick them, and that trick would usually lead to harm to the person that got tricked. So Usopp shares his characteristics of lying, but another thing, a more subtle detail that he shares, is that one of his, probably his strongest technique, the Green Star Impact Wolf. A giant green plant wolf gets sprung out of his slingshot essentially, and he uses that to attack. What does that wolf, you could say, represent? It represents Fenrir. Now that is Loki's son in mythology, and it is the wolf that is said to kill Odin. And that's like what is Odin trying to represent here? Is the king of the giants, is Odin going to be this great threat that Usopp is the one that takes down because of his symbolism here with Fenrir? Is he going to team up with Loki because he's going to share similarities? And Oda might twist it. Loki might not be a bad guy in One Piece. He might actually be a good guy. Him and Usopp may share a friendship here. So there are little scenes like this in why I think Usopp's true potential is going to be awakened in Elbaf. Every scene, every different aspect of bravery has just been leading all the way up to Sogeking. Every arc, a little bit more of the real Usopp comes out. And then we get the real Usopp through Sogeking, but he doesn't rely on that. He goes back to his but his other persona. Then a little bit more of him comes out. He goes through the time skip, gets a little bit more confident. He awakens Haki, he gets a little bit more stronger. He gains followers, people that believe in him. And that build-up is going to accumulate in Elbaf. Not only because that's the place where he's decided true warriors live, but just the different symbolisms that Oda has shown us through Usopp's journey of the land of the Norse gods is where Usopp is going to awaken. It is the gods that are going to empower the god, if that makes sense. And that is why anyone watching this, anyone that reads the manga, why you should all be on your hands and on the edge of your seat, I should say, in preparation to Usopp just going freaking balls to the wall and showing us an unbelievable power up, I reckon. He's probably not big three, obviously, but he's going to definitely be up there. some examples of why we see Usopp. He seems to be like top three commanders of Shanks. Usopp as well, being Luffy's best friend essentially. He's going to be, if not there, just underneath that echelon of strength. I honestly reckon Usopp may be the fifth strongest member after Luffy and what we're calling now the big three. And he may even, if the circumstances are right, get into that echelon. Maybe not for all time, but we know that Usopp's a very Batman-like figure in terms of fighting. A lot of setup, a lot of planning. And to know that if the plans were right, he could contend with people like your Sanjis and Jinbeis. Now, I imagine a lot of comments would be like, Jack, you're talking shit, Usopp being as strong as them. Get out of here. It's just it's a subjective take, I will admit, but just where I think Oda is going with the story with Usopp. A man that he first introduced as a liar, and the man that he's going to be finishing this arc is not just a brave warrior of the sea, not just a god in his own right, but a man who is comfortable being who he truly is. The real Sogeking, the real Usopp, is going to reach his character progression peak, the ceiling, the finale, the climax, everything that this story has been leading up to for Usopp. He's going to reach all of that in Elbaf. It is going to be his giant friends that help him reach it. It is going to be Luffy and his crew that help him reach it. It is going to be through his interactions with the, evil antagonistic giants of Elbaf that helps Usopp awaken this strength. Who knows? He might be Fenrir of the Norse mythology. He might be the one that saves the day in Elbaf. He might be the one that saves the day from the giants while Luffy might have an interaction with Shanks. That's going to be a cheap plug there for you, because we're going to have a video coming up in the next few days, haven't decided when, going over everything that you should expect from Elbaf. And probably first thing up on that list, the most prevalent thing, it's going to be Usopp's awakening. So that pretty much wraps up everything I wanted to talk about with Usopp. I really like that I did this video, because I went into it with a little bit like, I don't really want to make this video. To be honest with you, Usopp is in my bottom tier favorite characters in the Straw Hat Pirates. That's not a dig on Usopp, because I do love all of the characters in general. But it's videos like this, doing it on Usopp, that helps me gain a better appreciation for who he is as a character. Like, I like making this video for you guys, but I need to make these videos, because it shines a different light on a character that I already had a preconceived idea of. So, making these videos are a lot of fun. I did one on Chopper as well, that you'll be able to find on my channel, about how I was wrong about Chopper, because they're my two bottom tier characters in the Straw Hats. And by viewing them in a different light, getting a different perspective on it, I can understand why if you came to me and said, Jack, hey, I actually think my favorite character here on the crew is Usopp. I can hear you say that now from making this video, from learning all this information on Usopp. And I agree with you. He's not my favorite, but I can be like, that makes a lot of sense. I can see why Usopp would be your favorite character. He ticks all your boxes. So I absolutely loved making this video. And leave down in the comments what you guys thought of this video in general, but also what your thoughts are on Usopp. I'm dying to read all of those ones. I'm really looking forward to it. But you guys know what to do. Like and subscribe. I've been Jack Cypher. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys tonight. And now it's editing time. So I'll post this in a few hours, and I look forward to seeing all your comments on it. But guys, have a lovely night.